Welcome to Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Our topic today is breast cancer, and we're speaking to someone who knows the disease like no one else. My guest is Dr. Sue Hwang, author of the book From Both Sides of the Curtain, Lessons and Reflections from an Oncologist's Breast Cancer Journey. Dr. Hwang, thank you so much for joining us today. Great to see you.
Thank you for having me on, Lori.
So you actually are a doctor who treats breast cancer patients. Lo and behold, you actually are diagnosed with breast cancer. So this is really a memoir that you really get personal about, and it's really fascinating. Why did you decide to write this book?
When I first got diagnosed, as devastating as it was, part of me kind of thought, if I'm going to get a cancer, I guess this would be the one to get. After all, I've guided thousands of women down this path. I know the nuances to the treatment. I know all the doctors. So, because of this, I kind of thought I could get through treatment easily and then just kind of get back to life as I knew it. And when I was recovering from my surgery at home, I quickly realized that life as I knew it was gone. It's a very sobering realization because when you get this diagnosis, it really changes you down to the core. And the challenging thing is the world around you keeps going. Your friends are the same, your family's the same, and they're all there to support you, but you are just fundamentally a different person after this diagnosis. And I've heard patients tell me this when they come in and they meet me and they say, I just feel different. I'm off. I feel lonely. I feel very isolated. And I wanted to write this book because if I, with 15 years of experience treating breast cancer, felt lonely and isolated, then certainly someone without all my knowledge, it's totally understandable for, the average patient to also feel that way. So I wanted to share my story so that patients out there know that they're not alone.
One of the many things that's different about your experience as to the average patient's experience, if there is such a thing, is that as soon as you got your mammogram results, you knew that you had breast cancer. A lot of us have to wait until we talk to the radiologist or some other doctor for them to interpret it, but you knew right away. But what surprised you about your reaction to those mammogram results?
Even though my whole world literally turned upside down that instant, my brain kept thinking, okay, you have a schedule today. You got to get your car repaired. You got to get the kids, And I think it was just a total disconnect between the news and then like the reality of what I had to do that day. It was a weird way that I processed it.
They say that doctors are notoriously bad patients. What was it like for you to be the patient?
Yes, I will openly admit I was a horrible patient. And, to some degree, you're still in denial. Even when you're going in through treatment, you're in denial. It's like, this is not happening to me. So I wasn't intentionally trying to be a bad patient and not listening to my doctors. It was just that, like, I was like, physically, I was like, I want to go for a walk. I'm fine. I know I just had surgery, but I can still go for a walk, even though I wasn't supposed to go for a walk. When you work very closely with people, and, I have had the same breast cancer team for the past 10 years since I've been at this hospital. We have become friends. I mean, to the point where we are almost like family because we vacation together. And then all of a sudden, when you go from colleague to now you're the patient, I think we all were trying to find our bearings because, they couldn't necessarily treat me like a standard patient and tell me like what they were going to do because I already knew what they were going to do. And, they didn't have to sit there and counsel me through side effects because I knew all the side effects. So it was a very surreal experience where you're just kind of in this land of in between where you're the patient, but then, I kept working through everything. So I was still kind of the doctor. And, it was just a time in my life where nothing felt comfortable. I felt like a fish out of water. And it's disorienting enough to get the diagnosis. But then when like most people, because they're breast cancer doctors, I tell them, keep working, keep your normal routine. That helps you mentally through this. But for me, when my normal routine was the disease that I was also trying to fight, it was kind of a mind game, and it took a lot out of me mentally.
You're a very strong woman, single parent, 3 children, a doctor, and then an oncologist on top of that. And yet you were not able to be that strong, in control woman that you sort of prided yourself on. That must have been a big learning curve.
It was, I got to where I got to in life by being almost hyper independent. And I will totally admit I'm a micromanager. The joke at home is like, okay, do the laundry, kids, but then I'll come in after them and be like, you're not doing it right, When you get this diagnosis, and I write about this in the book about how pre-diagnosis, I really felt like I was treading water even on the best days, trying to manage the kids, trying to manage the job, trying to manage my house. There's just so many things I had to do. And I was certainly never the priority in any of those things. And then all of a sudden, my health became the main issue. It was kind of like you're in the middle of the ocean flailing, and then all of a sudden this 100-pound weight it gets added onto your shoulder, and it's impossible to stay afloat at that point. And that really, for me, was the point in my life where I realized I had to start letting people help me. I'm extremely lucky. I have so many friends that wanted to be there for me. And I had, my work family has also been incredibly supportive. And I'm lucky I have this support. But in the beginning, it was very uncomfortable for me to kind of get used to, someone even just bringing me a meal. I felt like I had to give back, because I
Yeah.
just feel like if someone does something for me, I want to also contribute. And
Right.
what this really taught me was there are times in your life where you just have to kind of sit back and let people help you. And then when they need help, then you step in and you help them. And it really kind of hammered home the idea that, like, we all heal in community. And that really has stuck through this. That saying has really stuck with me through all of this is you need to surround yourself with a good community because when things go bad, those are the people that can help you.
Really need other people. You can't go it alone. All right, we're going to take a break and be right back with Dr. Sue Hwang. The book is called From Both Sides of the Curtain, Lessons and Reflections from an Oncologist's Breast Cancer Journey. Stay with us. Welcome back to Healthy Living. We are talking with Dr. Sue Hwang, author of the book From Both Sides of the Curtain, Lessons and Reflections from an Oncologist's Breast Cancer Journey. So, Dr. Hwang, can you take us back to your diagnosis? Can you talk about what kind of a diagnosis? Was it stage 1, 2, 3, 4? And then what type of treatment you had? Because we know that there are so many different levels and different journeys that people go on with a breast cancer diagnosis.
So I had a stage 2 breast cancer. The type of cancer it was is called an invasive lobular carcinoma. And you may have heard of this because last year they actually published some data that said this cancer, which it tends to be known as the sneakier kind of cancer. And it also tended to be a minority of cancer, accounting for about like 10% of breast cancers. But last year, they actually published some data that said this is on the rise, and we are seeing this in a lot more patients. And it can be concerning because, like, for example, in my situation, I have been going for regular mammograms and I didn't feel it. I didn't see it yet. The largest tumor was over 3 centimeters, which is not small. When they did the biopsy, they found out that I was hormone receptor positive and HER2 negative. So the treatment that I went straight to was surgery. Because of how extensive the cancer was in my breast, unfortunately, breast preservation or the surgery called lumpectomy was not an option for me. So I underwent mastectomies, and then I actually went straight to implant reconstruction. And honestly, after that, my thought was all I needed to do was be on a pill because pre-surgery testing kind of suggested I didn't need chemo. And, as a radiation oncologist, I kind of looked at my chart and I said, okay, if I have a mastectomy, I don't need radiation. And then unfortunately, when we got the results back from surgery, we realized that It was a little bit more extensive than we initially anticipated. There was over 11 centimeters of disease in my breast. There was more than 10 tumors. As soon as I saw the pathology results, I kind of knew I knew I was in it for the long haul. I knew it wasn't just going to be a pill and then that would be it. So then I went on to chemotherapy and I received 4 cycles of chemo. And then after that, I did radiation in my own department, which was a very surreal experience. I then started an aromatase inhibitor, or also known as endocrine therapy, and another newer drug called Verzenio, which is a CDK4/6 inhibitor. And this is just simply a medication that helps to fight the cancer.
And what's your prognosis at this point?
So the overall prognosis right now is 85% chance that everything will go okay. So I'm taking that as a good number, and I'm trying to move forward. But right now, I am considered in remission, and I feel great.
So many of us know people or are people who also have had a breast cancer diagnosis. I know several people, including my own mother and one of my best friends. And those people who went through it, they say that the worst part was chemotherapy, and the worst part of chemotherapy, nausea, yes, but also hair loss, probably the number one most devastating thing about a cancer diagnosis. Was that your experience as well?
It was, and in my book, I actually almost dedicated like a whole chapter to hair loss. Initially, before the diagnosis, I kind of saw hair loss as a vanity thing, and I mistakenly would tell patients, "Don't worry, it'll grow back." And then when you're the one who's losing your hair, and I tried everything to preserve it. I did cold capping it, and unfortunately, it didn't work. When it fell out, it just was a reminder that this disease literally just strips you to the core. Hair for women is very defining. For me, it was how a lot of people remembered me because I'm extremely lucky. I know I have a great head of hair, and I think when people think of me, they always say, "Oh, that's Sue. She has a really good head of hair," and and then to get this disease, which is devastating enough, and then to just have it slowly take critical parts of you away. It's not about vanity. It's just about losing yourself to this process. And that's why for me, it was personally just so hard to come to terms with. So I tried cold capping. And what happened with me is I was able to kind of keep this hair over here, but I literally I had like this huge bald spot here. And so many times my friends were like, "Okay, we're gonna shave it." And I said it. I would tell my friends, I was like, "Okay, I don't know what I'm saving like this for." I mean, it looked horrible. And I remember I would tell my best friend, I was like, "Okay, I'm coming over to your house tonight. We are going to shave it." And then by the end of the day, I wouldn't show up
Hmm.
because it was just so hard. Even though the hair I had left looked horrible, I didn't want to lose it to the
Yes.
disease. So I kept it.
I get it. And so many people watching right now get it. Totally understandable. All right, we're going to be right back with Dr. Sue Hwang. She's talking about her new book called From Both Sides of the Curtain. Stay with us. Welcome back to Healthy Living. We are continuing our discussion with Dr. Sue Hwang. The book is called From Both Sides of the Curtain. So we were talking before about how traumatic chemotherapy can be and how so many people think that's the worst part of breast cancer treatment. But as far as the disease is concerned, the diagnosis is concerned, really the aftermath, the not knowing, the wondering if it's going to come back. Anytime you feel anything unusual, you think, "Oh no, my cancer has come back." Has that been your experience?
Totally. And, I think it's a very humbling experience to feel this because when you are the doctor, and even when you see early stage patients where prognosis is 95+%, these patients don't think about it like that. They think about 5%. And even though statistically they're going to do great, every time you go to the doctor, there's a lot of anxiety. And I know personally for me, when I got done with treatment, you all had the celebratory ringing the bell. Everyone around me was happy, and I was happy to be done with treatment. But the question that kept going through my head at that point is like, okay, what now? Like, what do I do now? It's one of those questions that it really takes some time to come to terms with. And I'm a year out, and I still come to terms with this life post treatment, which is called survivorship. Fortunately, we're getting a lot more attention to survivorship now, and we are now starting to address it with programs at bigger institutions. But, you know, I realize that a lot of patients out there feel left behind once treatment is done, and they don't know who to turn to. So I wanted to raise awareness about this because for those that are struggling, I think the first step to really helping them is to let them know that they are not the issue. Like, this is just the nature of the disease, and this is very typical once you are done with treatment.
You're talking about your attitude and your thoughts. Is it true that people who have a positive attitude often do better?
Definitely. So there have been multiple studies that have shown gratitude really helps patients recover. It comes down to, I read an interesting book called Mind Over Medicine, and the whole concept is your mind is so powerful. And if your mind is in a good state, which gratitude tends to make us, right? Because if you can reframe any situation, no matter how bad it is, and if you can reframe it and turn it into a positive, then your whole body responds in a positive fashion. And because of that, that's why people tend to do better if they are grateful. And the saying is, gratitude is the only attitude. And it's something that after my diagnosis, I really, every day, I try to find something to just be grateful for, just to help my overall mental well being, but also my physical well being.
How does a person become grateful, especially when they've gotten a devastating health diagnosis?
So initially, it would be little things like, for the hair loss. Okay, well, I lost most of my hair, but I'm glad I still have my bangs, you know?
Hmm.
And it really is just getting into the habit every day of finding something to appreciate. And like any habit, once you are used to doing it, then it just becomes second nature. And, whatever situation gets thrown my way, it's like, okay, I know that may not be ideal, but hey, let's look at the upside.
Hmm.
And I'm not walking around like, happy as can be and, not realizing the reality of the situation. I just am trying to control what I can control. And if you can turn any situation and make it be appreciative of it, that is a huge power that we have.
Indeed. All right, we're going to take one final break and be right back with Dr. Sue Hwang. The book is called From Both Sides of the Curtain. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We're talking with Dr. Sue Hwang. The book is called From Both Sides of the Curtain. And, we look at you, you're a doctor, you obviously look like you're in great shape, you're young, and yet you got this diagnosis and you detected it with a mammogram. How important are these types of screenings?
Absolutely critical to staying healthy. Breast cancer will affect 1 in 8 women, and that statistic is actually a little bit old. So I'm curious to see if it's actually more women now. But the fact is, breast cancer is non discriminatory, and screening mammograms save lives. So if you are over the age of 40, make sure you get your screening mammogram.
How often? There's a little bit of controversy about that.
There is a little bit of controversy about it, but the recommendations I follow are starting at the age of 40, it should be annually. And then under the age of 40, you should at least be doing routine breast exams. And then if you have a family history or obviously a personal history, then imaging will need to start earlier. But make sure you talk to your doctor about when you need to be getting imaging.
All right. Well, unfortunately, Dr. Hwang, we are out of time. Tell our viewers where they can get the book and find out more about you.
So you can buy From Both Sides of the Curtain anywhere books are sold. And I do have an Instagram page at Breast Cancer 360 where I am trying to raise awareness and also just bring more attention to survivorship. So you can follow me there if you'd like.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us, for writing the book and giving us this incredible insight into this disease that affects so many women. And thank you for joining us for this edition of Healthy Living. I'm Lori Johnson, and we'll see you again next week.